Good morning, Warriors. This is another episode of Vigor Warriors, and I want to do a couple quick ones this morning before I go and teach. I got a couple great questions, actually two or three of them, so I'm going to kind of do videos on these. And once again, before I forget, go ahead and and go ahead and subscribe if you like this channel. Also, comment. I'm going to focus on a couple of questions today, and I have another one that I think I'll probably focus on tomorrow. So I want to give a shout out to Shab. I believe that's the name. If I am wrong, I apologize. SHAB. He had a couple good questions we're going to focus on today in the next couple of videos here. And then I also had another one with So Fresh, and I think I'm pronouncing that right. And we're going to focus on talking about lust versus desire and the difference between the two, at least in my mind, focusing on this. All right, so let's go ahead and look back at Shab's questions. He had two of them. First one, I'm going to take this one in this video, and then I'll do another one in a couple minutes. But he's talking about energy. How does energy transfer in different things that you do? And kind of what am I talking about when I talk about energy and losing energy and the vampires, energy vampires who kind of suck that away from you, especially as they getting energy from you when you kind of deal with them. So let's kind of have focus on this, and I'll take it from both the physical and the spiritual, emotional type of side of things. So I teach physics. One of the areas that I teach is physics, and so one of the things over the years that you find out, certainly in the area of physics, is that matter that we're made of, energy, cannot be destroyed. So it has to go somewhere. And so if you use the thought pattern of like an ice cube, when you put heat to an ice cube, you transfer the energy from the ice cube to either water, or then it evaporates. If you put the water in a bowl and you boil it, it goes into gas. But it doesn't destroy the actual energy. And so what ends up happening, it transfers. And so we're in a life, in my viewpoint at least, that we transfer energy. So let's look at an example of this from the physical standpoint. And so we talk about retaining. And so when you lose your energy, you end up giving that energy to something, whether you're giving it to a person or you end up doing, giving it at, on bed sheets and all those kind of things. There's a lot of things you can do to get rid of your energy. So why I'm supporting, after all these years, keeping your energy is because you want to keep those nutrients within yourself. Now, one of the situations that I see that is very appropriate to give your energy is if you're going to procreate and have children. Obviously, that, to my mind, is the way we're designed to do things. And so, basically, giving your energy to someone and having a child is powerful. That shows you how much power you have in your energy. And so in my mind, what you're doing is, and I'm not taking it from the emotional standpoint, obviously, but I'm taking it from a standpoint of going and giving your energy to someone else, and that will then grow into a child, a baby, and so on. So the idea is that you're going from you're having the energy to giving someone else. What I'm talking about, and why we end up kind of losing our energy and not even realizing a lot of this, is the fact that we give energy for no reason at all. And we're doing it for short-term pleasure instead of looking at the long-term type of ramifications of those type of things. And so when you lose your energy over and over again, you become really kind of a dead type person, almost like a zombie. And this is what I call these energy vampires, because those vampires tend to be kind of dead. Now, they don't realize that, of course, but they're not the same person. I do think you lose some of your soul and your spirit when you're doing this with multiple partners all over the place, which I see a lot of happening now with a lot of the younger generation, and obviously some of the people that are in my generation as well. But that's why we talk about these type of things when it comes to energy. And so what you're doing is you're transferring energy. And so a person, from a physical standpoint, can go ahead and have energy 1 minute, and then if you have intercourse with somebody, then all of a sudden you're no longer in energy. That's the reason why you end up falling asleep. So those of you who've had intercourse and have done those type of things, that right afterwards you tend to fall asleep. And the male, because they're the one giving, in this case the female, the energy, they're exhausted. Now, if you look at the female, a lot of times because they're getting the energy, they may not be exhausted. They may be very excited because now they're getting more energy within the system. So that's kind of from more of a science type of approach to kind of look at the law of energy in physics. And so that's kind of why I talk about this. Now, from an emotional standpoint, and I think the question that Shab had was talking about if somebody kind of gets you off center a little bit, and how does that transfer energy? Well, let's look at it from just the emotional standpoint. So here you are, and you're doing something, you're working on something, and all of a sudden someone comes up to you and starts an argument for some reason. They argue. So now all your energy is building up emotionally, and you're being destructive because what you're doing is not only hurting yourself with your energy, but that energy is going to go out. And whether it's yelling or being angry or those type of things, that energy you have is going to go out. And so you're losing that energy. Now, it may not necessarily be going to the other person, though you are giving attention to that person. And if you give attention to that person, in some ways you are losing energy because that energy now is being focused on someone else. That energy has to go somewhere, guys. So that's what the question is. You're not going to destroy it, and the energy can stay inside of you from a physical standpoint. From an emotional standpoint, you can still get exhausted. For example, have you ever listened to somebody who has a problem, one of your friends? That person is kind of venting and putting everything on you. And you are receiving that energy, right? That person has let go of that energy. That energy was a very negative, toxic thing in their body. They let it go, and they feel good. You, on the other hand, have gotten that energy. And if you ever listened to somebody for an hour or so, a friend of yours, you feel exhausted because now you have that energy. And I guess that's the best way I can kind of describe the situation when it comes from the emotional, internal type of thing. Obviously, physically, you could see that when it comes to the energy you have when you have intercourse and those type of things. But from a psychological standpoint, when you're sitting there and you're listening to somebody, that person is venting on you. And they've kept this inside of themselves for a long time, and now they're transferring that energy to you. They feel better because they've let it go. On the other hand, you, because you've accepted it, if you don't let that energy go somehow, all of a sudden you're going to have it inside of you and it gets toxic. That's why a lot of males especially struggle with this idea of anger and keeping things inside. And that's why I always recommend that some of the weapons you have are obviously exercise and fasting and meditation. All these things we'll talk about in other episodes that I've actually used. But the idea is that you want to go ahead and get rid of that energy in a positive way or constructive way and use it and not just let it kind of, hurt you. And I know I've got some sun in the way, so I apologize for that. But the idea is that you want to make sure that you're using that energy in a positive way, constructive way, to achieve your goals, to go ahead and kind of move forward in things that you're trying to achieve. And so that's why we talk about this idea of how people can kind of take your energy from you from a physical standpoint and from a mental standpoint. And so on a battlefield of life we talk about here, we want to make sure that we can kind of deal with these vampires that basically suck energy away from you. Now, do they really know they're doing it? Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no. It just depends on the person and things you're dealing with. But anytime you're using energy, and we all do things that use energy all day long, we want to keep as much energy as we can. Now, once again, there's appropriate situations that you may want to give your energy to somebody, and that's fine. But just remember and just keep in mind that you are doing that. And that's kind of why I'm bringing this up, because you want to recognize the fact that you are giving energy to people. And, is it okay? Fine. If it's somebody that you're married to or somebody that you're close to and you feel strongly about, well, that's great. But just remember, you're giving energy. And so, that's something that you have to rebuild within your system, whether it's physical or mental. And you want to make sure that it's not hurting you. Okay? And I think that's the important type of thing. So great question from Shab. I appreciate that, my friend. And I will try to focus on your second question about people who are kind of dead in their soul, spirit, and those type of things, and how does it relate to energy. So I will focus on that in the next video in a couple minutes. All right, guys, have a great day, and battle on.